We come together here at the end of a week in which some among us may have experienced a loss, a week in which some among us may have experienced a blessing, a week in which some among us may have experienced a sadness, a week in which some among us may have experienced a joy, a week in which some among us may have experienced difficulties, a week in which some among us may have experienced resolution. Whatever our week may have brought us, we are here today, and may we find the comfort, the peace, the encouragement, the support that this community may bring. Good morning and welcome to the Church of the Divine Unity, home of Newcastle Unitarians. My name is Joan Cook and I'm a member of St Mark's Unitarian Church in Edinburgh. I'm currently serving as President of the General Assembly of Unitarian and Free Christian Churches. It's my privilege to bring yet again the greetings of the General Assembly to this community. Whether you are a regular attender, an occasional attender, a first-time attender or a visitor, you are welcome here this morning, sharing in this time of worship, our time of community, our time for peace, reflection and renewal, our time to acknowledge and connect with that which lies deep within us all. This morning Martin will light our chalice.
We are here dedicated to the proposition that beneath all our differences, behind all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together. In spite of time and death and the space between the stars, we pause in silent witness to that unity.
Thank you, Martin. Our first hymn this morning is hymn number 21, Common Flag. I invite you to join me in a time of reflection, to be fully present here and now, with ourselves, with each other, and with that which is larger than ourselves. To be present in the life of this place, and to the deep that calls unto deep. It matters only that we know there is no place to flee from what presents itself to us here. We can imagine flying to dark green islands far away in a teal sea, bronzed by sunset, but still the questions and the answers will dance within us, knock at our doors, haunt us in the dark. We can imagine pulling up the corner of the autumn morning sky, slipping away into a place too strange to name. But still, questions and answers will glide within us, pound at our doors, haunt us in the dark. We can imagine running away to the dark side of the earth, where spices float in the rivers, but still, questions and answers will circle within us, rap at our doors, and touch our shoulders in the dark. For there is no place to flee from the presence that presents itself here. The face we each recognize in the mirror of our lives, the yearning, the that is the breath in our own breath. Flee to the presence or stay here for it. It makes no difference. For we are here, present to what presents itself to us. Welcome. Welcome to the place of silence. A story entitled Hide and Seek with God. Once there was a man who wanted to know what God was truly like. Other people had told him all about God. He had many ideas of his own, and he wanted to know what God would tell him. So he set off to find God. He searched and searched. Finally, he thought he had found God. He said, God, I want to be sure I know what you are truly like. Some people say you are like a woman. Some people say you are like a man. Other people say you are like the sky, and yet others say you are like the earth. What are you truly like? Will you tell me, God? But God did not speak. God was silent. So the man went on speaking. Some people say you are in animals and trees and mountain tops. Other people say you're in the sun and the moon and the stars. What are you truly like? Will you tell me, God? God did not speak. God was silent. Again, the man spoke. Well, I think you're there in all these things, in earth and sky and animals and people. I even think you're in me, too. God, why aren't you answering me? God, why don't you tell me what you truly are? But still, God did not speak. Still, God remained silent. Finally, the man fell silent. He waited to hear what God would say. At first, he heard only his own words blowing through his mind like a strong wind. Man, woman, sky, earth. The words flew round and round, and the man waited. God said nothing. Then the wind grew stronger, and the words began to break into little pieces and fall away. Man, whoop, man, sky, earth. More and more, the words broke up and fell away. The man waited, and God still said nothing. When the words were all gone, the man still waited, but God said nothing. And then there was only silence. A calm and peaceful silence. And in the silence, the man knew he had found God. And now, some pieces taken from editions of the Quaker publication Faith and Freedom. These will be short readings, and each reading will be followed by a short period of silence. Martin, you have our first reading.
In silence which is active, the inner light begins to glow, a tiny spark. For the flame to be kindled and to grow, subtle argument and the clamour of our emotions must be stilled. It is by an attention full of love that we enable the inner light to lay to illuminate our dwelling, and to make the whole of our being a source from which its light may shine out.
The early friends made the discovery that silence is one of the best preparations for communion with God and for the reception of inspiration and guidance. Silence itself, of course, has no magic. It may just be sheer emptiness, absence of words or music. It may be an occasion for slumber, or it may be a dead fall. But it may be an intensified pause, a vitalized hush, a creative quiet, an actual moment of mutual and reciprocal correspondence with God.
So, one approaches by efforts which call the deepest of one's being to the condition of true silence, of not just sitting still, not just of not speaking, but of a wide awake, fully aware, non-thinking. It's this condition that I have found and held, for a brief instant only, that I have experienced the existence of something other than myself. The thinking me has vanished, and with it vanishes the sense of separation, of unique identity. One is not left naked and defenceless, as one is, for example, by the operations of the mind in self-analysis. One becomes instead aware. One is conscious of being a participant in the whole of existence, not limited to the body or the moment. It is in this condition that one understands the nature of the divine power, its essential identity in love, in the widest sense of that much misused word.
Announcing our next hymn, hymn number 150, Stillness Creeping Through. I decided that after the hubbub of an annual general meeting, the annual general meeting of the AIM had been held yesterday, that this morning should perhaps be a time of reflection, a time for ourselves. And so I have taken silence as my theme for this morning. To viewers sitting there expecting to have an hour of uninterrupted silence, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Although neither will I be following George Bernard Shaw, who, when speaking about the original form of Quaker worship, said, "I believe in the discipline of silence and could talk for hours about it." My first attendance at a Unitarian service was also my first experience of silence in a service of worship, and I had some reservations. There was no order of service, so I felt I had to follow the person in front, who luckily seemed to know what was happening next. I was unsure for how long the silence would continue, and I was just a wee bit concerned that someone was going to stand up at some point and regale us with revelations. But I have come to value the silence within a service of worship, and can honestly say that if I had to choose one part, and one part only, of a service which I would keep at the cost of all others, it would be the silence. What about hymns? Well, yes, hymns are important. They provide a chance to come together in song, an opportunity to participate in an uplifting communal experience. Prayer. Prayer is important to many who see it as the way of communicating directly with the deity or the divine. It can cut through our intellectual barriers, touch our hearts, but it can also leave us bored, feeling alienated from the experience of communal worship. And prayers without a period of silence can seem to be just another step to be taken before the sermon, or as a marker in the service. The balance of words and silence is so important, and I think there needs to be time for silence before or after, as well as during prayers, for them to be truly meaningful. Led or guided meditations can be useful as a way of navigating our own inner depths, but they can also be just a bit too prescriptive, not allowing us to explore the directions our thoughts are taking, or the guidance can be intrusive, interrupting our personal explorations. Music. Well, music has its powers to raise the spirit, to stir the emotions, to lead our thoughts in a particular direction. We include as part of our services a piece of music, possibly unrelated to the theme of the service, which can be an advantage in that if the sermon or theme doesn't speak to us, the music may well provide something which does. Silence. Silence is a powerful force within a service of worship. Ralph Waldo Emerson was known to have said that he liked the silence before the service better than any preaching. In our noisy world, this gathered stillness within our service is powerful indeed. And according to Tony Stoller, editor of Friends Quarterly, silence is itself a form of collective worship. But is silence just nothingness, an empty space? Well, the evidence says no. Larson and Garrity, two New Zealand neurologists studying the physiological effects of music, exposed their volunteers to periods of silence as part of a control. They found that the respiratory frequency, heart rate, and blood pressure all decreased to below baseline levels. The authors suggest that although the music induced a lowering of these physiological readings, there was still some degree of arousal, and it was noticeable that significantly deeper relaxation occurred when the music stopped. They concluded that there was insufficient attention paid to the effects of silence, and further research was indicated into the use of meditation and yoga. So why is silence so underused? The reasons are many. It may be that people are uncomfortable with silence. We have so little opportunity to experience silence today. You can see this in waiting rooms, checkouts, bus queues. People cannot just be without feeling the need to break the silence with non-consequential remarks to others, to perfect strangers. And when you're on hold on the telephone, how often do you manage to avoid the now standard adulteration of a piece of pop classical music? It may be that our aversion to silence stems from negative experiences of silence. Having to be silent in church as children, perhaps. There are also the negative connotations of silence as used by those who wish to assert their position, to dominate or belittle others. The use of silence can be hurtful, destructive, and painful. The silence we aim to create and experience, and have others experience, as part of an act of worship, is one of wholeness, care, communion, community, creativity, and humility. It may be that when we enter a period of silence, we aren't really completely silent. It is difficult, if not impossible, to attain complete silence on a Sunday morning. Someone's stomach rumbles, someone coughs. A taxi can be heard pulling up outside the church, and someone manages to knock their hymn book off a chair. But with practice, we can shut out these distractions to some extent. I suspect, however, that our avoidance of silence isn't really anything to do with these distractions. But the more compelling reason is that silence invites us to, indeed demands of us, that we enter the deeper, uncharted waters of our spirit, and we don't know what we'll find there. Be still and know that I am God, the psalmist writes. And in Kings we read, God was not in the fire, or in the earthquake, or in the wind, but in the still, small voice. To sit together in silence requires confronting the inner workings of our own minds. In silence, we see more clearly our thoughts and feelings, our hopes and losses. But we can easily shut them out by compiling to-do lists, wondering we should have emptied the washing machine before setting up the church this morning, and what is there in the freezer I can pull out for supper? Maybe the rain will stop and the sun will still be shining by the time this service finishes. But if we continue with the silence, we may find the development of deeper knowledge, a greater self-awareness, a greater understanding of what is our life. For some, these feelings are strange and unsettling. There is nothing to do in that silence but be. There are no landmarks, no roadmaps, no structures to guide us, save for the rhythm of our own heartbeat and the rise and fall of our own breath. We can do this by sitting silently. In the most common form of Buddhist meditation, one sits silently, often for long periods, continually returning the awareness to the breath. It is this breath which is the breath of our origin and of our departure. Our word spirit comes from the Latin spiritus, or breath. And returning to the breath, we return to the spirit. We hear the winter wind. We allow ourselves to cool into winter mind. We reach the source, the spring, the creative power out of which we came. Quakers see silence as an essential element of their services. They describe their approach to God as the ministry of silence, which demands the faithful activity of every member of the meeting, as together we empty the depths of a living silence, the stillness of God. We find one another in the things that are eternal, upholding and strengthening one another. When I attended Quaker services, I found this to be true. But it's not just the Quakers who value silence. Dr. Charles Eastman, a Santee Sioux, writing as Ohisa, says, he, the American Indian, believes profoundly in silence, the sign of a perfect equilibrium. Silence is the absolute poise or balance of mind, body, and spirit. The man who preserves his selfhood, ever calm and unshaken by the storms of existence, not a leaf, as it were, stirring the tree, not a ripple upon the surface of the shining pool. His is the mind of the unlettered sage. It is the ideal attitude and conduct of life. If you ask what are the fruits of silence, he will say, they are self-control, true courage, endurance, patience, dignity, and reverence. Silence is the cornerstone of character. Some find that they have an appreciation of silence thrust upon them. Philip Simmons, a Unitarian Universalist minister, who suffered from what we in the UK know as motor neuron disease, wrote, these days my relationship with silence grows more intimate. With Lou Gehrig's disease, I face the loss of my ability to speak. Already, my speech slows, my tongue grows unwieldy. Before hefting another syllable across my palate, I consider more seriously whether it will improve upon the silence. Because I'm too dense to get the message any other way, and because my years of meditation, despite my years of meditation, the fates have instructed me quite literally in the art of sitting down and shutting up. I am being shown what is essential. But my situation only dramatizes the choice we all face. Whatever our personal circumstances, we can resist our fate and continue to suffer, or we can open ourselves to the fall into silence. When a congregation enters a deeper silence together, the feeling in the room is palpable. The silence is rich and dense, and has a feeling of communality and cohesiveness, as if everyone has come together in that same rhythm of breathing, heartbeat, and being. It is here, in this space, that the knowing comes, that the insights are gained. This is described in the words from Rufus Jones, an early Quaker, which we heard earlier. Silence itself, of course, has no magic. It may be just sheer emptiness, absence of words or music. It may be an occasion for slumber, or it may be a dead form. But it may be an intensified force, a vitalized hush, a creative quiet. To make this possible, the silence should be neither too long or too short. If it is too short, there is not enough time to enter deeply into ourselves, but allows only time for the shallowest of exploration, the skimming the surface. If it is too long, those meditating or praying may find their minds wandering far afield, and the meditative stance should always be alert, awake, and receptive. Silence before, during, or after a prayer or spoken meditation is useful if it helps the individual move into the depths of their own being, enabling us to feel truly held and embraced by a community and by love. So let us now, with the help of a musical introduction, try to create such a period of silence. When the machetes of injustice tear apart the fabric of the nation and of the world, I speak up. When the sunset resembles purple and orange vines entwined like lovers, I sigh in silence. When the mud of deceptions and trickery smear the mirror of public life, I speak up. When the moon rests like a thin slice of lemon in the sparkling glass of morning, I smile in silence. When the insecure bully me, or the greedy clutch at the common purse, I speak up. When a song lifts my soul aloft like a lark, I swoon in silence. When wars and rumours of wars destroy the hopes and lives of children, I speak up. When I am overcome by the reality of the communion of life, connecting every woman, man, and child on this one earth, I give thanks in silence. When I am restrained by systems of control, manipulation, denial, and duplicity, I speak up. When words cease, the breath moves deep and slow, and the inner and the outer are as one for a time, I wander